Welcome, everyone, to the Q&A session for our upcoming course, the Energy Codes Advanced Training, the 6-month journey to deepen your intuitive mastery and your power to heal. I'm Lisa Bonis, and I'm really excited to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Dr. Sue Morter and address questions about her upcoming 6-month course, Energy Codes Advanced Training, which begins Tuesday, November 6th. Later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Dr. Sue Morter is a master of bioenergetic medicine and a quantum field visionary who utilizes the embodiment of high-frequency energy patterns to activate full human potential. Her visionary model ignites a new approach to living in creative genius and personal freedom through capturing and enhancing high-frequency energy patterns in the body. She draws from her experience as a doctor for over 30 years, inspiration from a life-changing awakening during meditation, and her personal passion for cracking the code of life itself. She's founder of the Morter Health Center and the Morter Institute, an organization committed to teaching self-healing techniques and a new approach to life based on quantum science. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Dr. Sue, who will begin our call by leading us in an opening meditation and telling us a little bit about our upcoming class. Welcome, Dr. Sue. It is always so great to talk to you.
Thank you, Lisa. It's always a wonderful experience to be connected with the Shift. It is my home away from home, and I travel the world all the time, so it's really lovely to be able to connect in with you and the people that are part of our entire Shift family. So welcome, everyone. It is wonderful to be here with you as well. I'd love for us to just take a moment and gather ourselves. We have a tendency to disperse throughout our days and be pulled into the experiences of life in such a manner that we can be off core in a way, as I describe it. We want to come back home to the deep core centered space within our own physicality, as well as centering our minds and deepening our breath. And so if we can, what I reference as come on to subject versus being dispersed onto object, into some distraction out in the world. Perhaps the things that you've been thinking about this morning already, perhaps the things that have been on your mind in the recent weeks, days, months even. And in this moment, if we can call our energy back home to this integrated, centered, concentrated aspect of our beingness, we gather momentum, we become stronger, we become more likely to pierce the veils of the outer world, the veils of the illusionary world that has us functioning in a fight or flight type of fashion. So for now, let's just take a deep belly breath into the core of our being and just exhale, and just allow some time for the self to be quickened, to be cultivated, and breathe deep in the belly by contracting some muscles just deep in the pelvic bowl, just to gather yourself, to pull yourself from the thinking mind down through the throat and down through the heart and deep into the solar plexus, and a deep belly breath into the wisdom center. This receptacle of universal intelligence has to be drawn down into the body that we might catch the wholeness, the fullness of our being. And so as we contract the muscles gently in the base of the pelvis, maybe even the abdominal muscles are pulled back toward the spine for just a moment. Perhaps you even contract the gluteal muscles and lean back against your spine, that the central channel be able to open up and allow so much energy to simply fall down into the body the way nature would have it without any resistance. Take a deep breath in from above your head, from high above your head, about an arm's length. From here, just breathing down into the body, all the way to the heart. Allow the heart to open as you inhale into the belly. And then exhale down through these quickened muscles at the base of the pelvic bowl and into the earth. For as we take this breath, we again align we are saying to the universe, I am here, planted, integrated, and aware. I am available. For in the conversations that we are about to engage in, we will be tapping into the high frequency truth of the subtle self. We will be tapping and activating the aspects of our being that are oftentimes overridden, lost in their subtle, pristine presence as we enter into this physical world. And so, if we can manage to stay anchored at the tip of the spine, breathing in the belly, gently squeezing the blades together, slightly constricting the throat that we might feel the breath rushing through. Perhaps we roll our eyes up just to feel the tension behind the eyes, that we might find this plumb line dropping right down through the core of who we are. For that plumb line is the central channel, and as that central channel becomes animated, the soulful self, the essential self, becomes more robust here within the physical dimension. One more breath in from overhead. Breathe down from the high frequency light energies of hope and faith and trust, that we might vibrate at those frequencies within our own physicality. Then the mind doesn't have to work so hard to manage those experiences. And exhale down through the body into the earth, and let this be grounded now. For in this conversation we're about to engage in, if you can stay in the body as we begin to access some of these elevated topics, these high frequency concepts and the energies that correlate with them, we'll be able to create circuit building circumstances for ourselves even in this call. So I look forward to sharing more with you about the course. Let's take a deep breath into the belly from overhead. Breathe it down into the heart. Open up the body and exhale. Become that light as you exhale down through the body into the earth. The perspective that we must engage in this life is to realize that we are not humans learning about energy. We are energy beings actually here learning about how to be more effective at being human. We have a tendency to seek our spirituality, when in actuality, your spirituality is behind the eyes. It's the one doing the looking. The one that is found is the true you. The one that is seeking and questioning and self-doubting and wondering is not the real you. It is the false self that developed as a separate self early on in your life. It's part of the divine design. And so when we land and we splat and we disperse and we're out here in the splatted, dispersed state, we look around. We look to the outer world to tell us what's safe, who am I, where am I, who are you, how do I relate to you, how do I fit in, how do I survive, how do I make it, how do I succeed, how do I transcend this world of strife and struggle where there is pain and there is symptomatology that is a byproduct of me living as a separate self. And in those moments, I become curious about who the real me is. And then we end up in a conversation like this. And so, in the advanced course of the Energy Codes with the Shift, I plan on being able to share with you for the first time many of these high-frequency concepts about the higher self and the realms beyond the physical in such a fashion that we can embody them, animate them, and begin to awaken as them. For the truth is, we are the light. We are these high-frequency energies that are here to live out into this world, to bring the gift that we are, to bring the solution. But we've gotten trained as a survivor who is seeking the information for solution from the outer world. So our entire course is going to be about you tapping this deep true self and accessing the identity that you are supposed to be living as and animating it out into the world in a, not only in an abundant way, but in a way that brings the gift to others. Because when we are in service, we are more closely behaving the way our divine design is structured. And so with that structure coming into place through this course, it will become easy for you to make a difference in the world simply by taking care of your own real estate, your own personal space that we have agreed to take conscious stewardship of. So our own microcosmic laboratory becomes lighted up as we start to roll in to the modules. Of course, we're going to review what we covered in the original course, and we're also going to move right into what it means to be expressing in your wholeness, and what health and wholeness and wellness really are, and how you can enhance those aspects of you with ease and grace. We'll also, of course, be speaking about your personal cycle in life, because there are times that it's naturally more easy for you to be in a creative role. Other times it's more easy for you to be nurturing yourself, and other times it's difficult for you to find that as a real opportunity or an option for you. It doesn't even feel accessible. And there's a reason for that, and things that we can do to help facilitate our understanding, bring the mind on to the truth of what's going on so that it can help rather than hinder by judging or doubting. And then, of course, we're going to plug in the modules that follow, the 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12th chakras that are part of the Energy Codes chakra system that allow us to be engaging in the bigger picture, your life purpose, your soul purpose, your own embodiment of your divinity, your ability to raise and lower the vibrational frequencies for expansion and embodiment, for expansion and anchoring on a regular basis, so that you're doing this all the time through your daily life, not having to find separate hours of practicing, but rather learning to utilize life for the purpose that it was designed, which is your spiritual practice, your practice as a spiritual being, an energy being, your practice at becoming an amazing human being, at a supernatural kind of being, at a supernatured individual awakened. You are operating differently than the one who's living just from their 5 senses. So we'll be cultivating all of that. We'll be understanding the difference between the electric body and the magnetic body and how they play together, creating the electromagnetic individual that you are, the individualized aspect of the unified field at large. We're going to speak about how we polarize and why we polarize and how it creates physical symptoms and mental and emotional distortions that we call upsets or grudges, etc., and why those things are necessary right up until they're not. And then we learn how to disassemble them with grace and ease because we recognize the role that they play. We're not trying to get out from under the confines of this world. We're actually consuming it and metabolizing it so that it fuels the fire of who we are. There's nothing that we need to escape or get rid of or get away from. There is nothing broken, nothing wrong, and nothing missing. We are here to awaken to the transmutive quality of love divine in a body, of conscious light in a body that we truly are. So many things that we'll be covering, but I'd love for you to have an opportunity to ask some questions and us speak to exactly what's relevant to you today so that you can know that you know that you know that you're in the right place and that there are some answers that you've been looking for all of your life right at hand, and that you will know that you will be led step by step along the way to a great awakening in the months to come. So let's just see what we have, Lise.
All right, great. Wow, that just sounds so inspiring. Thank you so much. For those of you watching, we have the rest of our time together to dive into your questions for Dr. Sue Morter as we prepare for her upcoming course. Again, that's called Energy Codes Advanced Training, and it begins Tuesday, November 6th. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the 6-month course, you can visit energycodesadvanced.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get started with questions. We've got plenty already waiting. If you have a question for Dr. Sue, just go ahead and type it in, and I'll be happy to read them aloud. Let's start with this is more a comment than a question from Elizabeth, but I think a lot of people will feel this way. She says, as I approach 60, I'm healthy, strong, and vital with no physical healing needed that I'm aware of. My biggest blocks are in the area of self-actualization of purpose and manifesting abundance and love. I do a variation of EFT and meditation, but no measurable changes seem to be happening, or at least not fast enough. I've been on the path of self-evolution for many years, and while wonderful internal shifts have occurred, tick-tock, I feel anxiety about the future as though I'm running out of time. Can you address Elizabeth's comments?
Absolutely, Elizabeth. I love that you said tick-tock. It's something that I say all the time. It's like, what are we waiting for? So it sounds as if you're not waiting, that you've been in action, that you've been leaning into all of the things that we've been made aware of to do to help us facilitate this awakening and self-actualization, realization idea. What happens so often is that people don't learn the true distinction about how to be embodied and how to recognize when we conversely are living in the mind field, in the head, basically, living in your head, or living in your mind. As a mind-based reality and a mind-based being, we can do all of the techniques that we have learned to move energy or to unhook old habits or beliefs, to unpack them and set them free, to transition them into something else, to try to metabolize them. But if we are trying to do that, let me see if I have a little picture here to help us. If we are living out here, this is kind of a busy picture because I've drawn on this before in our introductory course, but I just want to say that this is all the invisible energy, the spiritual aspect of us. This is the physical aspect of us, the etheric, the emotional, and the mental. So this red line here is really depicting the mental body, the aspect of our protective personality, the characteristics that we develop when we are in the splat or in the dispersal. And when we start attempting to learn processes, techniques, procedures from that place, we start working on the body and the mind from the level of the mind. And one of the first things that we're going to clear up in this course is the distinction between living in the mind, living in the body. Because if we're in the body's energetic automatically anchors the mind to a lower alpha frequency. And so the wave that we are riding begins to slow and become dialed into an entirely different reality than the one that we are wrestling with and trying to heal from or learn to navigate so that we can awaken. It's an entirely different reality from the place of the mind, from the mind field, from the radio station of our own thoughts and beliefs and the orientation that we have. So when you see this with these little pieces of gunk, drawn onto it, what I'm depicting there are our grudges, our beliefs, our conclusions that we drew. They never should have left me. They never should have fired me. They shouldn't have said that to me when I was 16, whatever might have been happening. We start to build an identity right there. So this one that has this identity is typically the one that is looking for techniques, processes, courses on how to put the pieces together, because that aspect of us needs to put the pieces together. The pieces that have to come together are hooking that mind field up with the physical body so that we can change the entire vibrational radio station that the mind is even filtering through and trying to process life from. So our techniques are not as effective when we're living in that space. No matter what we do, no matter how disciplined we are, no matter how much exercise we do in the techniques that we learn, no matter how early we get up to meditate and to do the works that we know to do regarding mindfulness, and you mentioned EFT, it's a beautiful process that I know will serve more people more deeply, more consistently, if they will just learn to do it from deep in the core of the body and from the vibrational radio station of the essential soulful self, not the level of the mind. It's an entirely different practice with an entirely different outcome. And ironically, it's exactly how we bridge the worlds so that the circuits that you are building are circuits for self-actualization, realization, awakening, enlightenment, and embodiment of that at the same time. versus only utilizing those techniques for purposes of reducing my stress, forgiving my sister, being able to have the courage to embrace and engage in a conversation that needs to happen with my mother or my father or my boss or my partner. These are the types of things that are very important. And as we start to get those under a manageable control, into some sense of mastery, then we're available for why we're really here. So your question speaks to exactly that, why we are really here, which is exactly why I'm bringing an advanced course to the shift, because that is indeed the conversation that matters most. So thank you for the quality of your question. We're headed into some very deep and rich answers for you.
All right. Well, thank you for the quality of your response. That was very nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got a question here from Katya, who says, what's the difference between energy medicine and the energy codes?
So energy medicine is the use of energy for purposes of integration, healing, evolution, consciousness, increasing our awareness, our availability, etc. So energy medicine is also implemented in lots of ways. There are lots of modalities that express energy medicine. There are machines and magnets and light therapy equipment, all of which are dealing with energy medicine. There is biofeedback. There are all kinds of externally oriented equipment-based circumstances or modalities that are also under the category of energy medicine. There are even nutrients that are based in super subtle orientation. Homeopathic remedies are actually energy medicine. And the energy codes are a version of energy medicine, but the specific quality that I am interested in sharing in the broad spectrum of energy medicine modalities is that if we can bring our consciousness to the fact that we are the energy that all of these modalities are attempting to enhance or to redirect or to qualify or to reverse or to enhance in some way, then it begins to become automatic that this enhancement is revealing itself in ways that we're not even attempting to correct for. The energy begins to animate and kind of roll out in our lives in ways that we didn't even know that it could help if we were to do so. So we're awakening as the energy of energy medicine. We are awakening to the fact that we are the medicine that we've been seeking. And as we do that, the medicine gets administered instantaneously, consistently, unwaveringly, and in a very comprehensive fashion. So often when we start to approach healing or enlightenment or embodiment of any sort, from the outside in, we have a tendency to move from a problems-based orientation. I have this problem and I want to fix it. I have this situation in my life or this tendency to think or behave or process from this perspective that actually isn't really serving me so well, and I'd really like to overcome that or transition it into something else, all of which is effective approach, and we will start our course from that place so that we ultimately have a full spectrum perspective on knowing how to operate here where we're describing that we've been, and how to move up the spectrum to a place where we can perceive and operate from a place of creatorship, where we don't have to have what we don't want in order to figure out how to work with and work toward what we do want. Rather, we're coming straight in as the creator and bringing our innovations, our intuitions, manifesting them into a reality that we're choosing to create for humanity and choosing to live in ourselves. So the energy codes are not different from energy medicine. They are a part of energy medicine. But what I want you to recognize is it's a combination between working with techniques and modalities to enhance energy flow in the body, but at the same time, developing our understanding of the truth of what's happening here. What's actually happening is a conscious being that is energy-based has decided to come to the third dimension and contribute to the evolution of consciousness. And in doing so, it's going to refine itself in the process. So everybody wins. And we're going to learn how to work with that in a collaborative way, because it is time. Because we have evolved to the place where it's time for us to recognize the true perspective that is going to serve us and the evolution of humanity at large. And beautifully spoken, tick-tock, the time is now. So hopefully this is helpful for you.
Right, thank you. We've got a couple of questions from people asking about being empaths, but let me read Miriam's version of the question. She says, what's the most successful way to help ourselves from being so sensitive to energy? I get so quickly affected that it disrupts my whole day, and I have very little time to get my business work done.
Oh, you bet. So the energy that is disruptive is, I started to say destructive, and it kind of is the same thing. If it gets in the way of you being able to do your work, it's kind of having an impact, right, that we're not interested in. So the empath has had a tendency at large to be not in the body, out of the body, in these elevated states of consciousness. We develop awarenesses of how people feel, what's going on in the room, how to sense and feel when energy is flowing and moving in a way that is life-enhancing versus a way that is oppressive or harsh or brash in some way. Even if someone has a smile on their face, you feel something else going on, so you know what's cooking. And the issue at hand is when we are coming up against these dissonant energies that are not coherent, that are not resonant, and we are impacted by them. I want you to understand that the fact that you're being impacted by it rather than you having an influence on it without even having to try is because we're not in the body. When we embody, we start to ground ourselves into a sense of well-being and a sense of self that is certain, that is clear, that is strong, that is kind of unwavering and impenetrable, and at the same time, completely available, completely ready to love, completely ready to experience the joy and the possibility in life. And when somebody comes at you with a totally different energy that is shut down and locked up and you see it a mile away, you don't try to protect yourself. You open and you ground in the ways that I'm going to be sharing in this advanced technique, to the degree that you are able to transmute the very energies that are around you. If we're not in the body, that is nearly impossible to do, because the mind has to do all the work. But when the mind anchors itself kind of in the arms of the body, everything changes. It's like you feel like you've got somebody by your side helping navigate this world. And what happens then is you move out of defense protective perspectives and you start to become exponentially more available to creativity, genius, caring, helping others, serving, creating ways to do less and accomplish more, so that the people that you're around enhance and elevate and expand their own consciousness, not because you sat down and taught them how to do it, but because they're in your energy field. Let me just show you a little picture. I love to travel around with my posters all the time, so I can just give you in a moment, right? So this energy field starts to perfect and get larger and larger and larger and larger until it's even off the chart here. But that energy field in its fullness, in its full capacity, has the ability to transmute everything that comes across its path. Everything that passes through this field, just as you walk by, much less work next to or are in constant communication with, everything starts to perfect. And they may start to feel a rub because of your presence, but that rub will polish them. And they will become better at what they are and who they are and what they're doing on the planet. And they'll in turn turn around and have their families be affected in the same way. As the distortions are removed and the perfection is embodied, we start to have an impact on our entire culture. And that's what we're really about. That's what this class is really about, making a difference in the world. It just so happens that the byproduct of you doing your own work is that the world changes and you happen to heal automatically, because we're designed to be whole and healthy and well, strong, vibrant, and clear. So the empath, I know, I am an empath, and I used to be strongly affected by, to the point that I had to shut things down in order to navigate the world. And as I came into my body and learned how to do that, I returned to the gifts that I was here awake to as a child, and am now utilizing them to help hundreds of thousands of people around the world. So I understand the necessity for your question, and I understand the necessity for strong, clear answers to such questions. And that is exactly what this course is about. When we start talking about these high frequency chakras of 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, it isn't just for the amazing, phenomenal, extraordinary ride that we go on when we start animating and accessing and discovering these energies. It's really about taking that high frequency experience and bringing it into the body so that it can be who you are when you go to work, when you walk in public, when you're doing the doing of life. You're bringing the real you here in a way that the world is desperately seeking. So I suspect you're going to love where we're headed. I look forward to sharing it for sure.
All right. Wow. Well, if you're just joining us, we're here with Dr. Sue Morter, learning about her upcoming course, Energy Codes Advanced Training, which begins Tuesday, November 6th. And you can log on to energycodesadvanced.com for all the details and to register. Let's go ahead and get back to our questions here. We've got a question here from Amy, who says, how do you work with the deep wound of I'm bad?
Oh, well, the I'm badness. Yeah, so I did the I'm bad thing. I was an expert at that for, I don't know, probably 35 years, maybe 40. And with remnants to 45 and a few little specks here and there in my 50s, you bet, and constantly discovering new ways to unpack that illusion, because the illusion comes from an untethered mind. When we are not anchored in the body, we cannot possibly be connected to the soul in a consistent and unwavering fashion that is relevant here. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be connected and very soulful and a very spiritual person and engaging in very deep, rich conversations about the nature of nature and the cosmos and universal intelligence and what's really happening in the bigness of being. So many different ways that we can describe and discover and explore those things, which are fascinating and fabulous. And if we do not come into the body with the wholeness of what we're discovering there, if we do not know how to embody, even though we are tapped in to such amazing concepts, then there is a differential in our being. Parts of us are high frequency, and parts of us are grounded physiology, our humanity. So our divinity and our humanity are operating as two separate worlds. And the friction that exists in between those worlds is where we come up with an interpretation of a vibrational experience that gets translated by the mind as something's wrong. And everybody else seems to be enjoying what they're experiencing, so there must be something wrong with me. It must be me. And so this self-doubt, this lack of sense of certainty and clarity about not only who and where we are, but what we are, persists. We are light. When compressed into a body, it generates love. We are love in a body. We are light in a body, which equates to compressed light, and the first vibrational frequency at our very foundation is love. And so if we are not in the body, we can experience the light of enlightenment and high frequency conversation and conceptual realities that are blissful and amazing. We can even also advise others on such things. But we won't have the experience of our goodness until we fully embody. When we drop into the body, we sense and feel and know the goodness that we are. It's not something that the mind has to conjure up or unpack. The mind has to utilize itself the way that it was designed to be used. And so we have to master it. By bringing it onto the body, it becomes mastered automatically. When we are engaged in conversations or techniques or a philosophy or principles that are about mastering the mind, if it does not include embodiment in the conversation is just another theory. You cannot master the mind fully until you are completely embodying as a spirit being here all the way into your physiology. And when you do, your mind automatically changes itself. It dials into a different frequency where different kinds of thoughts are thought because different vibrations are bombarding our conscious awareness above the trapdoor of the central nervous system. And so the brain is operating differently. In that different operation, it interprets the same vibrations from an entirely different perspective. Badness is dissolved by embodiment. Badness is dissolved when love is infused into the same person. Love is infused into the same beingness or the same person when we pull our faculties back together that belong together. Mind, body, and breath together equal divine loving presence. And that leads to healing. And it leads to healing not only of your physical body, but of course of such inherent, deeply rooted concepts like there's just something bad and wrong here, that if I hide it long enough, I'll be safe. But the universe will never tolerate that. It's either going to implode you or explode you, right? I'm here to help soften that and actually create a functional and intentional way of unpacking such lies. So we can tap into the truth again. So hopefully that's helpful for you regarding your badness. Your bad self gets to turn into an enlightened bad self, and that's one that's filled with love.
Beautiful, thank you. I'm sure more than one person had that question, so thank you for that.
Right. Get on with your bad self, right? But let's do something really good with it.
Right. Let's take a question from Renee here who says, how do we change our energies to change our luck? This year has been horrible.
So what's the question about it? Can we change our energies and change our luck?
Yeah.
Okay. So luck is what the mind operating as a separate self is counting on. It's gambling for it. It's banking on it. It's praying for it. And what I would love for us to understand is the difference between luck and the miraculous. Being blessed in the miraculous is really what you're intended for. And as you would call it luck, it happens, frankly, in an unwavering kind of way. It's always here. It's always allowing something to fall into place just at the right time, just in the right way, that opens a door, that moves you into a new reality. It's happening not as luck that fell from the sky. It's happening as consciousness that fell from the sky because you invited it here from these high frequency realms that we perceive as elsewhere. And we're going to talk about the subtle anatomy, the parts of you that are in the sky that are attempting to come in here, but can't as long as we're operating as a splatted, dispersed, separate self that is just running on luck, running on a wing and a prayer. And I want to take those energies of luck and a wing and a prayer and a coincidence and the miracle and just meld them all together for you and give you an understanding of why it happens when it happens and how you can get it happening consistently, unwaveringly. There are things that are constantly showing up in my life that blow my mind. And that's the purpose, right? My mind is seated in the core of my being, and it senses it and feels it and knows that it's exactly the right thing, right on time. And of course, this is happening. And the old me, the one that would be thinking this could never happen, it would never be possible, and never even allow myself to breathe in such a manner that allows this energy to have a life, that one would have been completely blown away by the way my life has unfolded in the past 10 years, in the past 5 years, in the past 5 months, in the past 5 weeks, in the past 5 days. Things have been happening in my world that are beyond possible, and they happen that way all the time. and my team is helping to orchestrate this amazing energy, bringing together this program for you and creating all the handouts and things that we'll be bringing so that you can see it, because we're working together in a miraculous kind of way. And as that happens, it rubs off on you. As you start to infuse yourself in this, it starts to feel like your luck is picking up. But I'm going to teach you along the way in this course that it isn't about luck. It's about being blessed. It's about finding your wave. It's about riding the miraculous wave that is intended to be unfolding in your life, period. That's the way it's meant to be. And so we stop making it so hard by learning the tools with which to allow it to be as easy as nature would have it be if we weren't getting in the way. And it sure looks like you get really lucky. I certainly am one of the luckiest people I know, but I have to tell you, it feels like a blessing, not like luck. I'm going to teach you how to have the same experience with the same concepts that your question is about.
Nice. Thank you. Wow. Well, looking at the clock, we have time for a few more questions. But before we take those, I want to answer some questions about the course. People are asking about that as well. The course, again, is called Energy Codes Advanced Training. And this is going to be a mind-blowing 6-month journey under Dr. Sue's expert guidance, where you'll expand your capacity to heal at the intersection of energy medicine, neurobiology, and quantum physics. And the 6-month course takes place on Tuesdays at noon Pacific, starting Tuesday, November 6th. And if you can't join us live, that's fine. You won't miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. Also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on our courses, giving you until December 4th in this case to make sure that you absolutely love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Energy Codes Advanced Training Bonus Collection. Lots of good stuff this time. First, you'll receive an audio teaching with a PDF workbook from Dr. Sue Morter entitled The Bus Stop Conversation, Soul Contracts and Life Purpose. And you'll get another audio teaching with PDF workbook from Dr. Sue called Front Side, Backside, Awaken the Creator Within. Next, you'll receive a video masterclass from Dr. Sue entitled Vertical Awakening versus Horizontal Living. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Thursday, October 18th, you'll receive an additional bonus gift, and that is 2 audio meditations from Dr. Sue Morter entitled AM/PM Meditation, Essential Components of an Energy Codes Daily Practice. So, Dr. Sue, before we get back into questions, what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Oh, my goodness. You know, what I love doing is bridging science and spirituality, because they never were supposed to be separated out in the first place. And the fact that we've developed enough that we can bring this high-frequency conversation of this beautiful spiritual experience of enlightenment, waking up to the truth of who we are, which isn't just a better functioning human. It's a spiritual being. It's the one that we read about, that we hear about, that we study about, that was in the ancient texts. And it is so important that we realize that it didn't just exist thousands of years ago, that it's alive and awake here now, and that we each have the capacity to see a reality that has been spoken of with sacred terminology for so many words, or for so many years. And I so look forward to bridging that with what quantum science and neurobiology and the biology of epigenetics is revealing to us right now, that is setting the left brain free and giving it permission to engage with this beautiful right brain. It's allowing our need for structure and proof and evidence to be softened, because we have structure and proof and evidence that is telling us that whatever we are seeking and believing in and paying attention to is actually formulating into a reality that we then step in and live inside of. And so that is proving what was said 5 and 6 and 8,000 years ago in the Vedas and in the Upanishads, etc. So these ancient principles are being proven, of course, by modern science. And I just love making it super user-friendly. exhilarating and enticing and activating to your own DNA structure so that it enlivens and wakens up. And the next thing you know, you're thinking like a genius and you have no idea where it comes from. You're processing information and enhancing the channel of 11 billion bits of information that are bombarding your system and trying to channel through it all the time. They finally get to become organized and orchestrate themselves into new projects, new ideas, new ways of looking at your life. So I could go on forever, but I would say that my favorite thing that I'm looking forward to is bridging the worlds right inside of every individual that is sitting at home in their own sweet, safe space, and they're engaging in detailed, intimate, rich conversation about them and about the truth of who they are, rather than just building a better skill set of how to manage this tough world here. Let's change the world that we're living in so that we stop the fight before it has to begin again. So I'll stop there and just hope that suffices as an answer.
Terrific. Thank you. We've got another question about the course itself. So let's go ahead and address this now. This is Leanne, who says, I've been following you and your work over the past few years. I'm interested in taking the course, but I'm concerned that I'll be out of my depth. Will I need to start with the introductory course before progressing to the more advanced material?
Well, I definitely recommend that you plug in. The Shift has done such a beautiful job of putting them together and bundling them for you so that it's an easy do, that you can watch engaging parts of the beginning course. If you can watch a couple of those modules, you don't even have to watch the whole thing before we start, then you can continue throughout. You will have absolutely no problem following. In fact, you won't have problem following, but if you want the depth and richness of all of it, I highly recommend that you just get the bundle and begin. You begin immediately, then the course starts when it starts, and you're ready to roll. You don't have to complete the introductory course before we begin the advanced course, but just by coming into some of the introductory concepts, you'll be more secure in how we're getting started. I'm not going to leave you behind. I'm also going to start in a review session in the first module or two, but to have the richness of what is available to you, I would definitely say that going back and plugging into that introductory information and walking through it together will enhance your understanding and change your life by deepening your mind's ability to hold everything that we're saying. Now, I'm not going to speak in terms that are way advanced. I'm just going to take them further than we've taken them before. You'll be able to follow along. You know, it's a real thing for me to make sure that people are plugged in with me. So otherwise, you know, I would have this conversation every day. It's just a lot more fun to have it with you guys, right? So it's important to me that you follow along. So I'm always listening to what needs to happen for this to be digestible, to be user-friendly, to be accessible to everyone. Otherwise, it doesn't serve, right? That's why we're here.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've got a question here from another Sue who says, will this course be helpful to the Me Too population?
This course is very helpful to the Me Too population. I was part of that. So I assure you that all of the energies of integration and dropping in to one's true self, which allows for empowerment and being able to know that I need risk nothing in order to move forward in my life, that I don't have to compromise anything in order to have everything available to me. In fact, when I am no longer compromising anything, everything is available to me. But we didn't realize that when we're in the splat. We didn't realize that what someone else said or did was only an opinion. It was only a perspective, and that there is a path that is intended for us that unfolds with grace and beauty and brings us right into the circumstances that the soul has come here to have, to awaken to joy and bliss and a victorious, exalted state, to be a creator and to be empowered and loving and kind and compassionate all at the same time. to be so powerful that we can bring truth forward and let it be healing, and not be afraid of the truth in our present moments, and lean into circumstances rather than have to subject ourselves to something we don't want to be engaged with, or to think, well, maybe that's just not possible for me because I'm not willing to engage under those terms and conditions. And so we're here to transmute that. So I would say that the Me Too community would find great support and great enhancement to where to go from here. Because once we start speaking into the Me Too idea, that something was mismanaged, that I was mismanaged, and I'm here to say that's not okay, what we kind of don't realize is that we don't have a lot of circuitry in place. We don't have a lot of knee-jerk responses. We don't have a lot of automatic come-froms that allow us to be strong in those moments, because we spent years suppressing that. And when we're suppressing some part of us, we're suppressing our power. And so to come forward fully empowered in a moment where we say, you know what, me too, that's a great upliftment of our empowerment. But what this course is going to do is to teach you how to navigate after the fact, to navigate up to the point where you have the ability to reveal a Me Too in your life. And if that has already occurred and that has come out in your world, and you've kind of shucked the shroud of guilt or shame or insufficiency or inadequacy in some way, and yet you don't yet have the circuits in place to know exactly how to navigate life as this new you, then this course is completely supportive to you in exactly that fashion. So, in a word, I'd say yes, it's going to be very helpful. But I have a lot of other words to say about it, as you can tell. There's so much to share about our liberation, our freedom, and our strength and power as loving, conscious beings to remain loving and conscious and integrate our power into the mix at the same time. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Let's go to a question here from Deidre, who says, can you share what it feels like when your finer energies step down into your body?
When the finer, refined energies of high frequency sensation start to enter the body, it shows up in a variety of ways. It can show up as symptoms. It can show up as a friction or a tension or a rub. It can show up as an intensity that has to soften in. It can show up as warm and wonderful and expansive and beautiful. It can show up as glowing and blissful and filled with love. It can show up in such a fashion that you find yourself falling in love with everyone and everything that you're doing. Now, I'm going to guide you on how to do that in an embodied and integrated way so that you don't get into trouble falling in love with everyone and everything, and that you don't come across as this, floaty, blissfully, angel on the planet. You want to be an angel on the planet, and you want to be an angel in skin, and you want to not have to be afraid to be here at the same time. So we have to merge these things together. And as we do, as we step down into the physicality, it can be a shuddering, it can be a quaking of the body even. And I'm going to walk you through exactly how to manage that and to anticipate it if it occurs, and to capture it and utilize that energy that's being released into your system, and to utilize it for raising up above your own primitive brain into fight or flight, and up above that into creative genius, where you're designed to be operating. But you have to anchor and ground in the body to be able to. So sometimes these high frequency, delicate, pristine, precious energies, as they float down or drawn down or invited to anchor and reveal, they reveal out into the body. Ultimately, it isn't just about receiving. It's about receiving, of course, but it's about integrating and revealing. And so it will show up in a variety of ways, and I'll walk you through the various stages of that as we engage. Because as we start speaking of these high frequency energies, they start to become activated through a transmission just in the conversation alone. So I'll be constantly guiding you on how to recognize the sensations and how to work with the embodiment of those energies and how to sense and feel and know that embodiment is occurring. So excellent question. And, I don't like to give answers that are full spectrum like that, except that it is a full spectrum reality that will occur as these high frequency energies begin to animate. Your cells change. Sometimes they're going to dance in delight, and sometimes they're going to go into a deep scrub down, offloading stuff that you don't need to be carrying around anymore. So I want you to be prepared, and you will be, how to manage that in whatever way that it shows up.
Okay, great. Let's follow that up with a question about anxiety. How can taking this course, participating, help with people who have anxiety or panic attacks?
So anxiety is a byproduct of the third chakra not accessing its guidance properly. There is an energy system outside the physical body, which is chakra 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And there is a direct correlation between chakra 11 and chakra 3, the mental body. Anxiety is when the mental body, right deep in the core of our being, just below where the ribs splay apart and above the navel. This area is what houses the energies in great concentration that correlate to the mind field, the mental self. Your ability to think and feel and interpret accurately is greatly dependent upon the solar plexus. For you to integrate and interpret life accurately without having an overreaction or a distorted perspective on something, greatly controlled by the solar plexus. When the solar plexus is coming online, it starts to shake. And if we don't know that, we interpret this shaking as nervousness, and we name that shaking and that nervousness that we are now labeling it, we call it collectively anxiety. When we can drop into the body more fully and breathe in the belly and learn how to draw from the high frequency energies that are so high, they're not even housed in the body, they are found beyond the body, we start to see this happening. What's happening here is chakras 1 through 7, and then what you see here is chakra 8, chakra 9, chakra 10, chakra 11 is the electric impulse that's happening through here. This electric impulse that's happening inside this whole chakra 12, that electric impulse is ultimately what is guiding this solar plexus to awaken. And so if there's not a good relationship between the two, it's really tough for the solar plexus to awaken with grace and ease. And so we have to prove to ourselves that we're safe. We have to engage in stressful circumstances and then become victorious through them in order to record in the subconscious memory enough information that allows us to feel safe in a similar circumstance in the future. And it takes a lifetime to become certain enough that we feel free. And that's not okay. It's not going to take a lifetime. It's not allowed to, as far as I'm concerned. We want to accomplish these things sooner rather than later so that we can operate here on the planet as the creator that we truly are. And so as we are concerned about the anxiety that we may be experiencing, I invite you inside the energy codes to stop naming it anxiety, because there's a whole story that goes along with anxiety. You have to then look for what made you anxious, where the anxiety comes from, how to deal with a problem. We create the problem by giving it a name and giving it an identity unto itself. We're here to unpack the tendency for the mind to do such things, but first we have to allow the mind to feel like something's got its back. When we start to awaken at chakras 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 through modules module 2, 4, 5, and 6 are greatly enhancing our understanding of these chakras. First, we're going to set up an incredible circuit building reality prior to that, so that when we move into those energetics, we are prepared to let them serve this idea of anxiety. Anxiety is only untethered, unintegrated energy. And as we integrate it with the energies above it and below it on the spectrum, and then we start feeding it more guidance, more consistently, what begins to happen is this rumbling that happens right in the solar plexus area begins to soften, just begins to sit down and to be available to allow the mind to interpret an entirely different reality, both inside the body and outside of the body. So that's coming. Definitely help for what we would consider anxiety.
Wow, you just blew my mind. This has been just, of course, a fascinating hour. It always is. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your terrific questions. Once again, the Energy Codes Advanced Training starts Tuesday, November 6th, and you can visit energycodesadvanced.com to learn more and to register. So, Dr. Sue, before we cut you loose, do you have any final words for our viewers?
You are here to wake up to the truth of who you are. That is your life purpose. That's it. Your life purpose is to awaken to the multidimensional being that you are so that you can be masterful here on the planet. We need you masterful here on the planet. We need you operating as the true self, the soulful self, the spirit being, with kindness and compassion and brilliance coming through you, with the ability to come up with new ideas that are creative genius, that allow us to serve the planet instead of harm the planet, that allow us to serve each other instead of fight across town, across the room, or across the globe. It's time for humanity to awaken. It is happening. It is now. And I so look forward to sharing with you the ways for you to integrate that and allow it to happen in your life with grace and ease. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with you, and I've enjoyed answering your questions and sharing a little bit with you today about what this 6-month program is going to be all about. So I look forward to seeing you there.
All right. Wow. Thank you again, Dr. Sue Morter. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely, Lisa. Thank you for all you're doing to help.
All right. Once again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.